So with that, I'll get started. So in this presentation, we're going to start with an overview of the DRS, along with what's changing and why. We're going to cover some employer reporting terms, many of which you're already familiar with, but there are some new ones that we want to highlight for you. We'll talk about active member data reporting and remitting of contributions and the pieces that go into that. We'll go over setting up accounts in the new system and topics like that, and we'll wrap up the talking part of the presentation with a set of slides sort of tacked on to the end of the deck that we're not going to speak to, but just have some background information for you as additional information. So as you are aware, we use the information reported by our employers every month to conduct our business and get our members on payroll and everything else. So we really appreciate the fact that you are sending us this data accurately and in a timely manner. We use it to calculate and finalize retirement benefits, process refunds for members who terminate and withdraw their contributions. It's the basis for our member annual statements that we put out every fall. Also is the basis for the data in My Account, the member portal, that they can check their own numbers. And ultimately, all these numbers add up and get sent to the actuary, and they're factored into the development of future employer rates. So there's a lot of reasons why we need accurate and timely data, and we truly appreciate your ongoing efforts to get that to us. So why is the data reporting system changing? It's a very valid question. NHRS is upgrading our entire pension administration database, which is known as Pension Gold, and the DRS is a component of Pension Gold. The current version of Pension Gold that we're using, version 2, has been in operation at NHRS since the early 2000s. So that's a very long time for any piece of software these days, and it was simply time to upgrade to a more modern version. So we're sticking with the same vendor, just using a new generation of their product. And we started this process internally, staff working with the vendor back in January of 2019. So over 4 years ago is when this started with the internal piece and the programming and testing of different components. This summer, we started rolling out the trainings for employers. And this is mainly on the monthly reporting. We're also going to be adding training sessions for the annual retiree reporting and for insurance reporting and authorizations in the coming months. With this training is leading into what we're referring to as parallel processing in October and November of this year. During this time, we're going to be having employers submit their monthly reporting in both the current version of the DRS and in the new system. This is obviously a heavy lift, and we know we're asking you to send us 2 files from 2 different extracts, and this is really the only way for us to compare the inputs to ensure that the new system is doing everything that it's supposed to. During parallel processing, the current version 2 system, the one you're using now, will remain the system of record, but we want to import the data in parallel into version 3 and do comparisons and testing over those 2 months. And then come December, we'll be going live with the new system, taking access to the old system offline, and that'll be the only system we'll be using going forward. Finally, we had been asking for some time for employers to send in test files with the new version 3 file layout. If you have not been able to do that yet, please talk to Joy either at the end of the presentation or right fairly soon. If we've been in contact with you and you're working on it, we understand that and appreciate it. Most employers have been able to submit a test file to us. We're working through now to validate many of those employer files. So what are some big differences between version 2 and version 3? First off, new hires will now be reported through the file or via web entry. We're going to be phasing out the paper enrollment forms that you have to scan and send in to us or mail to us or fax. Terminations, similarly, will also be reported through the file. And we'll be phasing out the paper termination forms. We are going to hold on to those a little bit longer as a backup once we transition over, but those will be going away sometime next year as well. You will have the ability to view and clear multiple exceptions at one time in the new system. Your pay periods and pay dates will be set up individually for each employer annually by pay frequency and things like that. So it'll make it easier for the system to process and assign what pays are coming in when. And the payment voucher fields will automatically be populated with the amounts from your posted reporting. So once you've submitted your file and it posts, you don't have to go back in and rekey all those different fields in the voucher. Those will all be there waiting for you. So since there are many, many terms associated with the DRS, we've got a few here on this slide. We're going to talk about the green ones, which are the new ones. There is a full glossary on that link page that I put in the chat along with the slides. There's a training glossary for these and other terms associated with the DRS that you can download. First off, with the green one, PGV3, that's shorthand for Pension Gold version 3. And that's the way internally we've been referring to this project for years now. So we're going to say it to you over the phone almost, without thinking. So we just want you to know when we're talking about PGV3, we're talking about the project. Batch card, you're familiar with how batches work now, and you're submitting your monthly batch. Batch card is just a sort of a graphical display tool used in the new system where you can access quick information about your current and future batches and start some processes right there. So it's a little bit easier way to access your batch, the batch that you're working on. Trial, this is a combination of the current processes in the system where it goes through the file validation and file edit phases automatically to look if the file's intact and if there are any exceptions. The trial does both of those processes in one shot. So, that's basically it. Unscheduled subgroup, I'm sorry. This is the plan that the members are enrolled in, for instance, employee political subdivision, police political subdivision, etc. So that's going to show up on the voucher. Unscheduled batch is a new feature where employers can create additional unscheduled batches outside the regular monthly batches that we schedule every year. And Joy will talk about what you would be doing that for later on in the presentation. And finally, tier. This is a newer, more accurate way to refer to the different benefit levels and employer reporting requirements based on when a member was vested or hired. The tiers wording is going to replace the vested by and hired by indicators in the current version, those checkboxes that you see. And a little bit more about tiers here. Tier A, B, and C are going to be the main tiers. Those are members hired vested prior to 1/1 of 12, which is, the old plan essentially. The middle group, members in service prior to 7/1 of 11 and not vested prior to 1/1 of 12, will be referred to as Tier B. And then anyone hired on or after 7/1 of 11 is referred to as Tier C. You may or may not see an indicator that says Tier A/C in your roster of employees. There are a handful of people who started on or after 7/1 of 11 and became vested prior to 1/1 of 12. And if you have one of those folks, that's what Tier AC means. So this page shows what the DRS login page is going to look like when you access the site. During parallel, we will have links to both versions of the DRS on our website on the same page, so you can go into one and then log into the other. Once parallel processing is complete and we go live in December, we'll be removing the links to the old existing system. So one thing you'll notice about the new system is when you log on for the first time, you're going to see a summary page that doesn't exist in the current system. We call it a dashboard, and this shows you a quick view of key items. We're going to walk through each of the sections on this page on the ensuing slide. slides. So starting over on the left-hand side with the navigation menu, this is where the navigation menu is in the current system. Color scheme's a little different, and some of the links are a little different, but this is what it looks like, and here are the details on each of the sections in the menu. So in the employer account section, employers can view your account summary and balance, submit payment vouchers, and request refunds or waivers of penalties. The employer reporting section is where most of the action will happen every month. You can create, edit, submit, and delete monthly wage and contribution files, correct your exceptions, upload any needed documents related to specific members, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. That's a new and an exciting feature for us. There's a verification tool to check the vesting status of members if you have new hires and you're not sure where they fall in the vesting tiers. You can use that tier lookup tool. Account adjustments is where you would fix certain errors in a member's account and upload wage correction files that are, requested by after an audit. Retiree reporting is the annual submission of information for NHRS retirees working for you in the prior calendar year. In the current system, that's a whole separate module that you have to toggle back and forth to, but the links are consolidated with the active member reporting in the new system. So one less thing, again, still going to be once a year. The file layout that you're extracting, if you're uploading a retiree file, is the same layout as you are currently using. So this function is changing the least from any of the other processes that we're doing. And again, we'll be doing training on retiree reporting in December and January. That doesn't open until the beginning of 24. Finally, the last section of the menu, reports that you can run to help identify errors, validate information, contact us, phone numbers and emails, and a help menu. And I will put in a plug for the help menu. It's pretty detailed, and it's a very good first stop for something. If you've got sort of a minor question, there's a lot of information on all of these different functions in the menu, in the help menu to check out. We'll be glad to work through if the help menu doesn't answer your question. We'll be here to help, but just want to put in a plug for that. In the middle of the page, under recent batches, you're going to be able to view the status of your current batches, whether it's submitted, in error, corrected, or rejected. And I think there's color coding for those different statuses. So another visual clue as to where you're at. You'll see the date of your next scheduled or unscheduled batches and your most recently posted and balanced batch. The little drop-down arrow on the batch on the left will toggle down. It'll let you to jump in to do different things to your batches or view the batch right from there. Employer communications section is where the notifications that are automatically generated by the system will show up. You'll get an email saying you have a new notification, and you can go in here and check them. Batch has posted, batch has exceptions, etc. It's believed the system is programmed to send you all of the notifications related to employer reporting. If you're a larger employer and some of your functions are bifurcated with different people handling different pieces, you can use that little filter tab with the green underscore on it to filter out the messages that you get, so you don't have to get things that don't relate to you. But we recommend looking at them all in the first couple months just to make sure you're familiar with what these messages are. And finally, over on the right-hand side of the page, the employer account section displays your next reporting due date, any outstanding balance, your last payment date and amount, next payment due date if known. And then under associations, they will show you anybody who at your employer who has access to the DRS will be listed here. So you'll know who has access and who doesn't. If somebody left, you can make sure they don't have the DRS and let us know so we can remove them, things like that. The other tabs, plans, that's only more for school employers, SIUs with multiple districts. If you report for more than one employer, and you have access to those different plans. You can toggle back over there. So I think with that, I'm wrapped up my first part of the presentation, and Joy's going to take over. And again, if you have any questions along the way, please type them into the chat.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to start off by speaking to the overview of reporting by file upload. When an employer reports by file upload, they extract their data file from their payroll system. You'll then submit it through the DRS, and you will be notified by email if the file contains any exceptions or if the file is rejected. You will also receive a notification after posting when it's complete. This chart shows a simplified version of the process a file goes through once it's been reported to New Hampshire Retirement. You'll notice on the left side of the line, it says employer, and on the right side of the line, it says New Hampshire Retirement System. So we'll start on the left side, and the employer submits their file. Then New Hampshire Retirement runs what we call a trial process, and this is where the process is checks for formatting errors in the file, and the XML validation tool would then check, because it's built in, for any exceptions within the file. So if you have no errors or exceptions, it then would post. But if you do have errors or exceptions, you will be notified via email. You'll have to review and correct those exceptions, and then it goes back to the trial process to see if it's clear or not. When an employer reports by file upload, you extract your XML file from your payroll system and you submit it through DRS. As you know, NHRS has reached out to employers asking them to send in test files to validate. If you have not yet submitted a test file, you can speak to me after the presentation or you can email me. When parallel processing begins in October, if you submit a file through the new DRS and have issues, be sure you are using the correct file schema and contact your payroll vendor or IT staff for help. The PGV3 schema is available on NHRS website, but if you continue to have issues, then you can absolutely contact NHRS. When it's time to submit your file, you'll click the Submit Reporting File button in the menu. It will take you to the following screen. You would want to click Browse to locate the file on your computer, and then you would click Submit to submit it through the DRS. You'll notice that there's a box in blue that has a check mark that says Validate XML Schema. This is automatically checked, so you don't need to validate your file separately in the new system. However, if you're in the habit of using the standalone validation application before submitting your file, the application will still be available for you to download and use. If you get a notification that your file has rejected, it means there were errors found during either file processing or file edits, essentially what we call the trial process now. There are many reasons why a file rejects, and some of the common reasons are listed on the slide. If your file rejects, you can overwrite it by uploading a new corrected file. So in version 2, sometimes you have to wait for us to get the report to delete once it's been rejected. In V3, though, you can just overwrite it by uploading a new corrected file. So I find that that's really helpful, and so I just wanted to make it a point. Here is an example of a rejected file notification that you would receive. In this example, its badge number is not valid or active. And what this means is that the badge number being used has already been processed. This can happen if you reuse a prior month's batch or if you key in a wrong number. Here's another example of a rejected file notification that you might receive. In this one, it's an exceeded threshold tolerance. And what that means is that 35% or more of the file contained exceptions. When you have a large percent of exceptions, it usually means that you have a problem with the file. Reporting exceptions are errors identified in a file during the DRS editing process. If you have any exceptions in your file, you will receive a notification. And again, just to reiterate, 35% or more of the total records in a file have errors, then the whole file will reject. And just like in V2, going into V3, files must also be posted free of exceptions by the 15th of the month in order to avoid a penalty. Here are examples of some common exceptions that employers can clear. There will be step-by-step instructions on how to clear some of the most common types of exceptions, and that will be available before the start of parallel processing in October. If you receive an email that your file has exceptions, you can view the exceptions by logging into DRS. There are two ways to get to your exceptions. You can go to the gray area on the left-hand side of the screen in the menu bar and click on exceptions. You'll see that that's circled. Or you can click on the batch card, and it's that little arrow that's pointed down. The box correct exceptions pops up, and you would click on that. After you've done one of the two, on the previous screen, it brings you to the screen that you see on the slide right now. So to view and correct the exception, you would click the review button to the left side of each exception. You'll notice that there is a delete button also on the left-hand side of the exception list. We just want to make a note to tell you that this button is rarely used, and I would not suggest to click on it unless you really mean to, or that you've called and asked. This delete right here can sometimes remove a person completely off the report. So you just want to make sure that you're doing it in the right area. Here's an example of how to view and clear a salary variance exceeded exception. This exception will occur if the wages reported for a member are significantly higher than what has previously been reported for them. And what I mean by significantly higher means that the system flags anything above 500%. This is usually results of a stipend or a balloon check. I do also want to mention that sometimes it's significantly lower that you also may get a salary variance. From this page, the employer can read a description of what the exception is, and you can click on the exception card to access the page where you can fix it. To clear this exception, you select a reason for the variance from the drop-down and click Update. So I just want to mention in V2, as you know, if you get a salary variance exceeded exception, you usually have to call or email us letting us know what that variance is. I think another high point that makes me excited for you guys is that now in V3, you would be able to clear those exceptions on your own. So if you get salary variance, on the right hand of the screen, you can see where it says salary variance reason. You would click on that little arrow pointing down, and that box pops open, and it gives you all of the reasons as to why you might have a salary variance. So you would click on the reason, and then you would go down to where it's circled and says update. After correcting the exception, you can click on the elongated oval shape under the exception card to mark it as corrected, or you can go back to the exception screen where all the exceptions are listed. Check the box next to the person, and then click on Mark as Corrected at the bottom of the page. The exception must be marked as corrected, or it will not be picked up during the next trial process. And I think it's back to Marty now.
Thank you, Joy. So as we mentioned earlier in the presentation, NHRS will no longer require paper enrollment forms to employ new members. The programming to indicate a new member for your employer is in the file layout now. So if your vendor was able to program that, you should have an indicator to indicate yes or no if somebody, or yes if somebody's a new hire, and our system will pick that up through the file. If you don't have that capability yet or at all in your file, you can also enroll somebody manually through the DRS. We will still be requiring paper enrollment forms through parallel processing in October and November, and then phasing those out after that. So if you miss someone that you did not indicate was a new hire, or you got an error saying we don't recognize this person, we've never seen them before in your file, you can manually add the person through the file. So you would go to your batch card and click on the batch card, and that's going to open up your batch. Then you're going to click on View to view the batch detail, which is the box that's jumping off the page, and then click on View Members. So this is going to show you all of the members in your current batch. So what you want to do is put that new hire in there. So you're going to click on Add, and the screen is going to pop up. It's blank right now. This is where you would put in the member's name, demographic information and start date, etc. And then you would hit Insert to get that person in the file as a new hire. So I'm going to pause because we're going to move on to termination next, but we did have questions in prior sessions about what would you do with the the copies of a birth certificate or social security card and things that we ask you to try to get from your new hires to send to NHRS right away, along with the paper form. So it's a little bit backwards. We used to want all that stuff plus the paper form, and we would input them into the system. So sometimes you would see your new hire wasn't added by us to the system yet, and you get an error that way. Once you have a new member in your file and that batch posts, okay, so that person is going to be set up in the system, and then you can go in and use the upload documents tool in the navigation menu. It's the last one under employer reporting. And if you have a beneficiary form that they filled out, if you have a copy of their birth certificate or social, any of the documents that you would send to NHRS in the normal course of business, you would go in, click on the upload documents, look up that member by last name or full social, and then you can upload up to 3 documents at a time. So we still would like you to distribute the beneficiary forms to them, get them to fill it out. If you have a notary on site, these to do that for them. You can scan that in and do it as a file, upload documents for them. This tool is also handy if you have an employee who has a name change, due to a marriage or divorce or some other circumstance, and you'd want to send that along to us for verification. So we have that on file. You can send that through upload documents. So this is more secure than sending it even over secure email. Hopefully, once everyone gets used to it, it'll be a little more convenient because you'll be doing it right through the DRS. And that's the sort of be the recommended method for sending trailing documents. So hopefully that answered Ann's question about what to do about the beneficiaries. Is upload that form after the fact. So terminations, we're also going to be moving away from those lovely forms that we email to you once we have retirees going on payroll in any given month. What we're going to have you do now is terminate through the file, and you can do that. There's an indicator in the file, or you can go through the batch card and indicate a termination date. You would start out by clicking on the detail and then on the member's name. And then in the member page, you would add a termination date and choose a termination reason from the drop-down menu. So if it's, retirement, etc. And this way, and the termination date you're putting in here is the last pay period that they worked in, the date of their last day and their last pay period. So what happens if you have trailing wages with this person or payouts that are reportable to NHRS, the system already knows that they're terminated, so it will flag that and initiate how the process works with the paper forms now and have you do that on screen. So that's termination forms. Again, we're still going to be asking you to fill out the forms as sort of belt and suspenders for a few months, just to make sure everything's working as we tested it. Another question came in on the new hires. Can we opt to enter the new hires manually and add the documents as one process instead of after the file is posted? You won't be able to add the documents until the file posts, because technically they don't exist in the system yet, as a member record associated with you as the employer until the file posts. So, it's there's a little bit of a lag time in being able to upload the documents from when you first report the file. And the second question, can the documents be uploaded before our month-end reporting, or do we have to wait until our monthly uploads? Again, they need to have at least one batch that they're reported as an employee for you, and then anytime after that, you can send those documents. And Joy, correct me if there's anything to add or if there's anything I got wrong there.
No, I think you're correct.
Okay, thanks. And actually, it's back to you for this piece.
Yes, it is. To submit a payment voucher to NHRS, select the voucher button in the menu. Note that there are two types of payment vouchers. Scheduled vouchers are created automatically and associated to a specific batch number. Unscheduled vouchers are created manually by the retirement system and are not associated to any one batch. Unscheduled batches can be used for payments not related to a batch or a reporting cycle. Here is an example of what you will see after clicking the View button. You'll notice there's a breakdown of payment by tier, group, and subgroup, as well as the payment amount total. So in V2, as you know, you have to fill out your own payment voucher and either email it to fund or you mail it in with your payment. In V3, the voucher is automatically populated with the amounts after you've cleared your exceptions and the report posts. So as long as you're paying the amount total in the bottom right-hand corner, it will match your report and then your balance would be 0. When the voucher is generated and all voucher detail is saved, it can be submitted simply by clicking the Submit button. If the amounts match, the voucher status will say Submitted. Once a voucher is submitted, it cannot be modified. However, if any changes need to be made, employers can click a reset link, which will put the voucher back into a status of scheduled or unscheduled. If the amount does not match the sum of the voucher detail amounts, an error will display. After the payment is made, if the employer thinks you've overpaid, then you can use reports to help locate an error that may have caused your overpayment. Contributions are due by the 25th of the month, just like in V2. So going into V3, it's staying the same. We recommend that all employers use ACH to send payments to New Hampshire Retirement System. We still are partnered with Citizens Bank to utilize the NHRS Quick Pay, which is an online bill pay function that facilitates employer contributions by ACH at no cost to you. Payments can be scheduled in advance to post right before it is due, and it's safe, secure, and free. To learn more about Quick Pay, you can see the NHRS Quick Pay page on our website. If you're already using our Quick Pay, you'll notice a slightly different interface this fall as we are adding a field for the batch number, and this is to improve the payment tracking. Employers can fix certain errors in a member's account and by going to the account adjustment link in the main menu. You'll click on the account adjustment link in the menu if you have erroneous contributions, salary continuance, or a salary pay item correction that you must add. So once you've clicked on the account adjustment in the menu, a box will appear. You will first need to browse and select the member that needs the account adjustment. So you would put the social security number and name. Then you would select the type of account adjustment you're trying to make. And to kind of break it down, erroneous contributions is when you need to adjust already reported pays because you find that they were overstated or you need a refund. And this is during your already posted regular monthly batch. The second item is salary continuance, and this is when you need to add or report a salary continuance outside of the regular monthly batch reporting. And lastly, salary pay item correction, which is normally based off an audit finding where you need to move salary buckets. So as an example, moving base to comp over base or comp over base to base. Similar to PGV2, employers can utilize reports in version 3. Reports can help in identifying discrepancies, viewing prior batch information, displaying member records, and more. On this slide, we highlighted a few reports that we think will be handy to employers. The employee listing report, which shows current employees. It can either show all current active employees or it can be filtered to show a specific hire date range. Then the employer account activity report, which is coming from V2 into V3, which shows the receivable payment and refund transactions for an employer. Employers can filter this report to show a specific plan, batch, date range, or fiscal year. And the employer reporting and voucher number report, which was also in V2 going into V3, shows batch numbers and voucher numbers assigned to scheduled batches and payment vouchers for a fiscal year.
Okay, moving on, just to getting started, just a little information on how this is all going to roll out. If you are an existing DRS user, you'll be able to use your login credentials for the old system to initiate an account setup in the new system. If you remember back to the login screen for the new system, there's going to be a link on it that says transfer account, and you'll be putting in your current username, password, and contact email into that field, and then that's going to port you into the new system to begin setting up your account in the new system. We'll have written instructions on how to do that, screen by screen with the different steps involved. If you have a new hire coming on, somebody who's not in the DRS already, that's going to be similar to the current process where you send in the authorization form to NHRS, and we're going to be sending that new person a link in their work email with an access code and a link to initiate the sign-in process and account setup. That link is going to be good for 48 hours only. So if they don't do it right away, we would have to resend another link. So that's how that's going to work. We will be opening up the DRS in October for you to be able to move over and set up your new accounts there. There is going to be a period in the first week of October where we're going to be asking employers not to report their files yet because we're basically, during that week, all the data in the current system is being copied into the new system until it's completed. We're going to have a bit of a blackout period. We'll be sending out emails with more specific details on the length of that early September, and then again a reminder before this all happens. But we'll be sending out lots of communications on getting you set up. We also want to let you know that we're going to be making a test environment, which we're calling the sandbox, available to employers who want to log in, poke around with the new interface. Basically, it's going to be the same process as when you're transferring your account into the new system. You'll be using your existing DRS username, password, and email to set up an account in this sandbox. And it'll be tied to your employer, so you'll have your member records there through the end of July, I think. So there's a little bit of a lag. It's not real time, but that was the last time we did a copy of the employer database into this test environment. So you'll be able to go in there, just go through the screens. If you change anything, it's not going to affect anybody's record. This is a complete test environment separate from the core database, so you can poke around and mess with files and do things just to kind of get used to the look and feel. We've got a few test employers who are trying out the sandbox this week, and if they don't have any issues, we're going to be sending out information for all employers to be able to set up an account in there and poke around if you're so inclined. It's not a required task, but I know a lot of people sort of are more hands-on learners. They want to kind of scroll through things and click on different things and this and that, and that's what the sandbox is available for. We'll have that available through late September, and then we'll be taking it down. We'll have that blackout, and then you'll be able to set up your accounts in the new system. So pretty excited about the sandbox, and hopefully you'll be seeing some information on that shortly. Resources for employers. This is a link to the project upgrade page. It has project news, technical documents, including the file layouts, training schedule, some of the handouts that we've put together so far on training, and we'll be adding more between now and when we go live in October. The slides are saved on that page as well, and we're putting up recorded versions of these presentations if you want a refresher or you want to scroll to a particular screen, because it's something you couldn't read your handwriting in your notes. So that's all going to be on this page. These are our contacts for the project. It's the pgv3drs@nhrs.org email, which actually Joy gets those as well, so you'd be conversing with her on that, and there's the phone number. The exceptions and reporting number and email address are the same as they are currently. Our existing staff will be working with you through this transition, so you'll be talking to the same folks you normally do to as needed in NHRS. For issues with setting up your account in the new system or in the sandbox, that's the phone number and email to reach out to. Once you're in, if you have questions or issues with your file, contact use the exceptions contact information, but this is just for tech support on getting you set up into the account. Our employer resources page has additional information, most of which is related to the current system. So once we switch over, we'll be taking down those instructions and repopulating that page with information only about the new system later this fall. And that does bring us to the end of the spoken portion of the presentation. So Joy,